site administrator here at Drakewell Museum and Park, and on behalf of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission, and the Friends of Drakewell, I'd like to welcome you to today's Oil Heritage Energy Security Conference. I have a couple of housekeeping things to review real quickly. If you need to exit the sessions today, we ask you to do it through the exit in the back of the room. There are restrooms just outside the doors on your left. There are also restrooms up here in the front of the museum, and you can circle through the back hallway to get to there. If you need Wi-Fi for cell phone calls, in the theater room right behind this wall are some slips of paper with Wi-Fi on it. And at this time, we ask you to turn your cell phones or any devices on silent throughout the day. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Andrew J. Tabler, an Oil City native, former Drakewell Museum and Park intern, author, former director of the National Security Council, and senior advisor to the U.S. Department of State. Andrew?
Good morning, everyone. Oh, geez. Thank you so much for coming out this morning. But the weather has really turned in our favor, and we hope that you stay with us as long as possible. I know some of you are having to leave, or at least making excuses about having to leave early. I hope the scenery here changes your mind dramatically. We have plenty of availability of lodging here in the county. First and foremost, I would like to thank Michael and the entire staff here at Drakewell Museum and Park, as well as the Friends of Drakewell, which supports the 501c3 that supports the educational activities here at Drakewell. They're fantastic people. They have been very, very helpful to us, and it's under their auspices, so to speak, that this conference is being sort of formed and that we've gathered here today. Also, as an issue of protocol, I'll get this a little bit later in the story. This morning we have back here at Drakewell in Venango County, Ambassador Khazar Ibrahim of the Republic of Azerbaijan. I'll tell a little bit of the story about how he fits into all of this. But we're very happy to have you back. And also thank you to everyone here in Venango County who's come out and got out of their normal schedules. For all of you that I've begged, pleaded to come up from Washington, D.C. to join us here today, I especially thank you all. And I wanted to also just take this opportunity here at the beginning to tell you a little bit about how this all came together. There's a lot of talk out there about things that are grassroots, but I think this story kind of speaks for itself. So, as you will find out during the day, I am not an energy expert by any stretch of the imagination. But I normally serve as a Middle East specialist with the Washington Institute. Today, I'm only here in my personal capacity, though, as a Venango County native and lover of the area's history. I do have a couple of my colleagues from the Washington Institute here with me today, which I'm very grateful that they made the trip up as well. So 30 years ago, next summer, I served as an intern with Drakewell Museum and Park. And 30 years ago, really big things were going on. America had just gone to war in the Middle East. The Cold War had just ended without a war with the Soviet Union, thank God. And a country called the Republic of Azerbaijan had just declared independence from the Soviet Union. And at least to me, because I was excited about my summer job, so much of it all seemed to do with oil. I was assigned as an attendant of the Pit Hole Visitor Center in Cornplanter Township, a Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission historical site of one of the area's most famous boom towns. Boom towns translate roughly into ghost towns and those of you that would like to drive by, it's still there. It has one of the best views of Venango County, especially of wildlife, but probably the fewest visitors of many historical sites in Pennsylvania. So to keep myself busy between visitors, I read Daniel Yergin's book, rise. The first few chapters of which deal with the birth of the oil industry in both Venango County and Bibi Heybet, today part of Azerbaijan's capital of Baku. And then on television one night, I watched a documentary on Azerbaijan's independence and the environmental destruction from Soviet oil producers that had bestowed on that country and the whole Caspian region. And I had seen similar photos here in the archive at Drake Well of environmental destruction from that period of time. And it struck me how much all the oil pump jacks, I believe you call them donkeys in Azerbaijan, looked exactly like the ones that I saw in this documentary, the ones that were right behind my father's house on Grandview Road. So, take that experience, and I literally parked it until last March when flashed in the Turkish capital of Ankara, energy and Caucasus expert Brenda Schaefer, my colleague here who sits in the front row, and you'll be meeting her shortly, of the U.S. Naval Postgraduate School, and I were sitting in a hotel lobby in the middle of the night discussing a, quote, track 2 discussion that had gone pretty badly. And track 2 discussion means a sort of diplomatic, semi-diplomatic engagement. And I told her that, she asked me where I was from, and I told her I was from Oil City, and she immediately became very interested, and she told me about that she often goes to Azerbaijan and is very involved there in the Caucasus. And I said, you know what, I always dreamed about going to Azerbaijan. And she laughed, and she said, well, they're having a conference next month, and I can probably get you invited. And so I went to the conference in Azerbaijan, and it wasn't about oil or energy, but somewhere in the middle of the conference, some unassuming gentleman came up to me and said, are you from Oil City? And I said, yes, and they said, can you come with me, sir? And Brenda and I went off to the they have a museum in Azerbaijan, in Baku, in the state oil company SOCAR's headquarters. They have a museum, which is very different than this one. I would say much more modern, but also has a library. And shortly after that, we were driven off to their replica, which looks very similar to the replica you see outside. It's at a separate site at Bibi Heybet. It's a little bit of a different setting. It's next to a giant indoor swimming pool, I think the biggest in Baku, and also a very famous mosque in that area. And so I had a wonderful experience there. Also have fantastic cuisine, and we'll be enjoying that a little bit later today at the cultural dinner at the Ironworks. The ambassador has brought up a chef from Washington and from Baku to cook for us, especially lamb, for those of you that like it. And we also will have some Venango County fare for you as well. And I came back, and I was contacted by Ambassador Ibrahim's office, and we went to see him, and he's listening. He said, you are from Oil City? And I said, yes. And then I started to explain to him about Oil City and about this region, and he just listened and looked at me, and he said, I have to go there. And I said, well, of course we can have you up during Oil Heritage Week in July. He said, no, I have to go next week. which led me to have a very frantic phone call with Commissioner Sam Breen from Venango County here, my good friend, in which I had to explain to him that we're bringing the Azerbaijani ambassador up to Venango County with less than 10 days notice, and somehow we had to throw a program together. And as you know, from those of you that were here last May, or that read the local papers, the visit was a huge success, not only here at Drake Well, where we had the ambassador and a number of others had an address, and we had some discussions, but most importantly, at Oil City High School. We took him to my father, Clarence Tabler's former room, where he taught for 37 years, and we had an opportunity to sit down with him, and we gathered students in the auditorium. I had to step out for 10 minutes because I was worried. I had to do a little bit of work, a quick Zoom call, and while I was gone, I was worried that the students wouldn't have any questions for the ambassador, because if the ambassador of Azerbaijan had come to our school when I was going there, we would be maybe a little shy. 10 minutes later, I came back, and he was being mobbed with questions. Literally almost every child had their hand in the air. And at the end of the remarks, he said, you know, I want to enjoy the recreation here in Venango County. It's such a beautiful place, which is true. And he said, when should I come back? And all of the high school students from all over Venango County, actually, they were all gathered there, screamed October. And that led Brenda Schaefer and I to run with an idea, a wild idea. Instead of just bringing the ambassador back, why don't we actually hold an energy security conference up here in the woods in northwestern PA during peak foliage? And you know, before the pandemic, having people drive for 5 or 6 hours from Washington, D.C. or New York would be almost unheard of, right? And it is difficult. I'm not saying that it's nothing. But during the pandemic, we learned that long road trips were not only cool again, but they were maybe much more manageable than sitting in O'Hare Airport and wondering when your flight is going to take off or when the air crew is going to show up. It's hard work getting something off the ground, but by early August, Brenda and I knew that we had critical mass to pull this off. But none of this would have been possible without the support and by Drakewell Museum and Park, the Friends of Drakewell, who have been the most patient and understanding of hosts, and we really thank you for that, or without the diligent work of the folks at the Venango Area Chamber of Commerce, led by Susan Williams, the Oil Regional Alliance, led by John Phillips, and last but not least, We Management Consulting and Hin Talhouk have really just been excellent partners in all of this. We've been blessed also with the involvement of a number of local officials and development figures, including Sam Breen from Venango County, and also Dawn Smith, also from Oil City, who are dedicated to reinvigorating the area's economy, built on the area's proud history. The symbol of our grassroots movement is the yellow dog lantern, which you will find, I believe, outside on the table. To those in Venango County, you know what a yellow dog lantern is or have heard of what it is. I doubt you've ever seen one lit, or very few of you. Well, we're going to be lighting one at lunchtime, so stick around as long as you can and see what happens. Actually, we test fired it yesterday, so it does work. And it's filled with oil from McClintock number 1, the longest producing oil well in the world, just south of here. This yellow dog lantern is not just the equivalent of an exercise kettlebell now, it's quite heavy, but it was used on the old oil rigs to provide light for nighttime work. And apparently, there are different methods for getting them to illuminate even more strongly. The idea being that the burning of the crude oil, when you would see it on the top of the rig through the forest, would look like 2 yellow eyes of a dog staring at you in the distance. So literally, without their involvement, without the involvement of people here in Venango County and taking really a lot of leadership in this, I would have had to have moved back home for 2 months and probably quit my job and stopped focusing on Syria and the Eastern Mediterranean. There are a lot of similarities between Venango County and Azerbaijan, which we will get into in the concluding panel today that I'll be chairing. But I can say the thing that struck me the most going to Baku was getting up in the morning, walking out of my hotel, and literally smelling the sweet smell of crude in the air. And of course, that smell comes from the seepages of oil that tied these two regions together. Men and women did not decide to drill in this area and in Baku for no reason. This is where oil naturally occurred on the surface. Some through fire, some through erosion and of Oil Creek into a shallow oil pool. But it's not the only similarity I found between the two places. Azerbaijan and Venango County are kind of on the crossroads of 2 different sort of geographic areas. Azerbaijan is on the edge of Eastern Europe and Asia and is quite literally in the middle of everything. And Venango County is on the edge of the Northeast, Appalachia, and the American heartland, which I think technically begins at the Ohio border. Both areas have also seen extensive environmental degradation due to the oil industry, and concerted private sector and government efforts have been enacted to reverse that damage and has borne remarkable results. Some of the damage you can see over here in these historical paintings, which you'll find here and throughout the museum. But it's also noteworthy that Oil Creek State Park, which is immediately south of here, that goes down to the northern part of Oil City, is now a beautiful state park and has one of the Pennsylvania's best trout fishing streams. So we went from environmental disaster, fires, huge floods, and so on, which this museum depicts, to the current situation that we have here, through government effort and through Old Mother Nature taking things back. We're going to be debating a lot of things here today. It's intended from the beginning, from the concept, with Brenda and I in our early discussions, to be something intimate. So we have the first two rows dedicated to those that we've brought in and other people, organizers who are respondents to those who will be presenting panels today. All but one, the last panel, will be off the record Chatham House rule. Chatham House rule means that you are free to use the ideas that are derived from the panels, but you are not allowed to attribute where the ideas came from, right? And this protects the identity of those that are choosing to exercise their First Amendment rights and to try and tackle some of the most difficult issues that are in front of us today. And we're going to be strictly adhering to that. We'll be announcing it before every panel you'll see up here. The first one says very clearly off the record. We'll be live streaming both this introduction and the concluding panel, but the middle panels we will not be live streaming or recording as per the wishes of the panelists. And hopefully that will stimulate a good discussion. And the discussion we have in front of us is not just about oil history, but is also about the future. We have a big debate in this country going on about what is the best path forward for the United States to succeed both economically, but also in terms of national security. And Brenda and I's getting to know each other was very interesting because of her background in energy and mine in national security. We sort of got in this huge debate about which one should come first and second. And Vladimir Putin, though, I think has determined that national security is a overwhelmingly important issue. It's one that we have to focus on, and it's one that's probably going to cause us to have to make some very hard choices in terms of our future energy sources, and particularly in regards to trying to meet climate targets and the reduction of fossil fuels. The climate up here today is beautiful, but over time the climate has changed in Venango County, and I'll point you to one. Many of you in Venango County know this. There is a historical marker at the Oil City Marina, paid for by several oil companies, that talks about that the Allegheny River used to freeze over solid every winter, and that people would ice skate with the help of lanterns placed in the ice from Oil City to Franklin, and then they would see an opera or a show, I believe, and then they would take the train back at night as a means of entertainment. Now, the train passenger train to Franklin no longer exists, of course, but I would dare anyone in Venango County to go out and ice skate down the Allegheny River to Franklin. Not that you wouldn't want to give it a good old try, but the fact is that over time, it does seem as if this area's climate has changed, although to the degree to which in terms of rainfall and temperature is really, to me, unclear. And we're going to be getting into a debate about that today, and a little bit about how we address these issues over the course of time and for the entire country, and if not, for the entire world. Let's see, anything else I missed? I think that's pretty much about it. Brenda, anything you'd like to add before we kick things off? Okay, anyone have any questions before we begin the panels? Okay, could I ask the first panelist to please take their seats? And thank you very much for listening.